What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of my Gran Turismo 02 Hero Racing Series. Today we are driving the Porsche 911 Carrera 993, I believe, on the Big Willow Springs International Raceway. Now, today, this episode is kind of a roller coaster of a ride for the simple fact that the 993 was the hardest car I've ever driven. So at the beginning, I kind of just went out. It was on three traction control, and it was kind of okay to drive like that, but as you can see, after my first lap, I do switch it down to 1, and that is probably the biggest mistake I made the entire time. As you can see at the end of my lap, even with the traction control, I'm going off course like a madman. But yes, that one traction control was probably the worst decision I made because I was not prepared for the snap oversteer this car was coming at me with. So at the beginning, I was kind of doing okay. I get a little bit sideways, but I caught it. And then as I come down from the downhill section, as you come over this slight curve, the car just eats something and just dies. And as you can see, this is kind of a little bit of a repetition here for the next couple laps as I was attempting to get used to it. As you come around the last corner here, I just fly off course and die into the no man's land of Willow Springs, and even just down the straight doing a simple turn, the car just went and just died, and again, and then once more again after the second corner. Yeah, so it was kind of a disaster driving this car on this track, maybe just because the car wasn't able to do anything. I'm just not good enough to drive this car, because technically this car is the fastest around the track. You have between the 993 and the 997, but according to the leaderboards, the 993 was the fastest, so I chose to pick that, and kind of went downhill with that. But I did end up putting 3 traction control back on for my qualifying lap, and I did an okay 128.7, I think it was. It was an okay lap. It's nothing crazy, but it was just something that I wanted to do a little bit better than the 133 I had, or 132 I had. So that's why I did that, just to get a decent lap. So here in our first race, I decided to keep the 3 traction control on just so I don't murder anybody, and I don't want to completely ruin the races because it would be just unwatchable, and it just would not be not entertaining whatsoever. But as we go around the second corner of the race, I get passed right away by another 997, and I just want to say one thing first. I think the 997 sounds way better than the 993, or I hope it's a 993. I'm not screwing this up, but I think the 997 sounds like 10 times better. I don't know why, but it sounds incredible, that car. And I'm kind of struggling here trying to keep pace with all the other cars. The car was quick. I guess if you have to you have to really drive it a certain way to really go fast with it. I think it has less power. I'm not even sure about that. But I think the reason it's fast is because it's so light, you can just toss it around. But if you're not comfortable with the actual physics of the car, of how snappy it is, it's very impossible to drive this car. You have to be really a really good driver mod to drive this thing. And at the end of our first lap, 2 guys do end up going off course. We do gain 2 positions back, and we're up 2 positions at this point. Also, the guy in 5th place does have a penalty, so he won't be serving now, obviously. He'll be serving next lap, but that's good news for us. That means as long as we can stay consistent and don't die, we're going to be hopefully fighting for a 5th position after this guy serves his 2-second penalty, so that's kind of good news. The long sweeper here, you got to be careful because you do want to stay out wide as much as you can, and in the last moment you want to dive back in. But if you do tap the gravel, it just takes your car, because it's basically driving on ice at that point. But then another 997 does end up passing me. I think it's just because it's so much more, feels more flat in the corners than anything else. But as you can see, as we come up to the corner here, the hill here where you come up and down quickly was very difficult for me. I just could not figure it out. It's because it has a blind corner in it, so you kind of have to trust the car and trust where you're going. I had better luck coming down the hill because I knew where to brake and how to stop. But as you can see, the Canadian behind me comes and just absolutely murders me for no reason. He wanted to take a hole that wasn't there, and I guess he was too scared to go on the grass, and he just died. But as you can see, he's also behind me again, and as we come through, I think it's technically the third corner again in this race, coming a little hot, but that's not bad. He comes in and absolutely murders me once again, hitting the gravel, and once you touch the gravel, like I said, and it doesn't help that I hit that wall. But that's the end of my race. But with the end of that, this is where I like to show you this is what I like to call the TSN turning point of the race. This is where, not the race, but of the episode. This is where everything changed completely. So I decided that car was way too hard to drive. I'm going to go in the 997 because it looks more consistent and just more stable in the corners. So instantly driving the car, I run a 127, and then I run a 126, and then right after that, I end up running a 125.4. These are the first 3 laps of me waiting for qualifying. Like, this wasn't me doing a couple laps. It was me instantly jumping in the car and running 3 consecutive second faster laps every time. So that was just showed me that, wow, this car, I'm just more comfortable in this car, and I'm going to stick with this and not just go in a car that's technically faster. I'm going to go with something I feel comfortable in, and I'll just drive better in general. I knew I wasn't going to be setting a fastest lap or anything like that, so it was fine. But in the second race, this does give me a 4th position at the starting position in 4th, with 3 guys ahead of us, 2 Americans and a Brazilian. But yeah, they did kind of run off on me right at the beginning, but I knew it was just the first lap. We had 4 laps to go and we'd be fine. But right at the beginning, the 1st place and 3rd place guy mess up the 3rd corner terribly and jump right off course and fall into the wall. This leads me right behind the Brazilian in the yellow 993, and I was staying right with him. Well, then again, it is the only first half of the first lap, so I felt good. I felt okay, and the way the car felt was just so incredible, and I just felt confident in the car. I didn't feel like, oh, if I go over this corner wrong, it's gonna kick out and kill me. Like, I knew I can go around corners flat out and not have to worry about the car dying. I can worry more about me trying to go fast instead of trying to worry about the car being stable. And I guess that shows like my development and how like much weaker I am than the other faster guys, but it's just something I need to work on, which is not a bad thing. But you'll see in the next race how my confidence goes through the roof, but that's for later. But at the end of this race, at the end of the first lap, I don't really end up catching him. It's just that's kind of how the race stayed. It was kind of boring. I ended up being like 10 seconds faster than the guy in 3rd place, like minimum, and the guy ahead of me was about, I think, 4 seconds faster. So he did run away with it just a little bit, but I didn't want to show you boring of me just doing laps after lap after laps. But I do end up getting a clean race, up 2 positions, so that was a pretty good race. Now, at the beginning of this race, you can see that I'm starting in pole position, and to say I was shitting my pants was an understatement. So before the race started, when I started my qualifying, I said to myself, like, audibly saying, wow, I'm the fastest person in this lobby. And honestly, that's kind of scared me, but it kind of gave me a little bit of confidence, saying, yeah, I am the fastest guy in this lobby, I can do this, right? So after the first corner, I ended up not dying, and that was the one thing I was worried about. I knew if I can drive consistently and don't get killed on the first corner, I might be able to run away with it, just possibly run away with it. And after the first corner, you can see I am doing pretty decently. The guy is behind me, but I'm still trying to be cautious on the first lap, because you don't know how the first lap's going to go, who's going to kill each other, and how fast the other guy's going to go. So as we come up the hill, this corner, I knew if I could take it properly, I could run away with this race pretty quickly, and I take it okay. I never take this corner fast, like particularly, but I took it well enough that I didn't die. In this corner, after you come down the hill, as long as you can brake hard enough in a straight line, you pretty much have that right away. And as you can see, halfway through the first lap, I'm already 1 second ahead of the guy. Now, that gave me a little bit more confidence to take an actual racing line, not be defensive, because I knew if he was a second behind me, that means you wouldn't be able to get a slipstream, and with how fast the corners are, being a second behind is way too far away to like do a dive whatsoever. So I knew I had time to take a proper line and not have to worry about being defensive of any sort. In the final corner, I take it properly and able to hit the apex somewhat, and I take a decent line. Coming down the straightaway, starting our second lap right here, I was getting more nervous and nervous as we were going on, which is a bad thing, but not, which is pretty bad, but a good thing at the same time, because I was trying to stay humble, saying, yeah, I'm not going to be too confident here, trying to think that I can run away with this race so easily. But as we start to enter the second corner, we are now 2 seconds ahead of the guy in second place. So we're slowly running away with the race. I don't want to say running away, but I did get a little bit nervous, and that's why I kind of did a little bit of tire drop there. But coming to the corner here, we're doing pretty well, coming up the hill, trying to make sure I take as best of line as I can. And I'm just trying like I said, in the uphill, downhill, like turn, just trying to stay consistent. And as you can see, coming up the hill within like a quarter of a lap, I'm able to go up another second against the guy in second. This might be because the guys in second and third were fighting like crazy. I don't know. Like I don't want to say I was so far ahead, but I was so far ahead that I wasn't paying attention to them behind me. I don't know what they were doing. I'm guessing the way I ran away with this was because they were fighting so much. Now, coming into the final corner, I guess you could call it, the big sweep on Big Willow, I was just seeing that since I was 3 seconds and a bit faster than them, I knew I had to absolutely send it in this corner and just try to go as fast as I could to just keep increasing my distance from the guys behind me, because I knew as long as I could try to keep going faster and faster away from these guys, they would not be able to compete with me. As here I set a 125.7 fastest lap of the race, and now I'm 4 seconds ahead of them, which is a pretty decent gap on the guys behind me. Just trying to stay consistent. Beginning my third lap, this is where I really started getting nervous, thinking, wow, this is the third lap. If I screw up, this is where it's going to be. And the most nervous part of the track I had was like the first half was here, because I knew if I went too wide, I'd hit the dirt and die. Here, if I was confident in this part right before the third corner, because I knew I could brake really heavily there. Here I was on the, like I said, the part I struggled the most, the big uphill downhill section. I was just nervous I was going to overshoot it and fall into the left there. That's what I was nervous about. But I did make up time, and I'm also another second ahead. I'm 5 seconds ahead of the guy in second place. Now, looking back, I do believe they switched positions in the following in this lap or beginning the next lap. So I think it is really because they were fighting each other so hard. If they actually tried to work together, I think they would have caught up to me, because I did end up taking that sector a little slow. But coming into the final corner, just like last lap, I was like, I have to absolutely send it. Next lap I can take this corner probably a little bit more cautiously, but this lap I have to absolutely send it just to make sure I can maintain that gap and not have to worry about them. Now, when I said last lap was when I was really nervous, this part right here, passing the start finish line for my fourth and final lap in our final race of the day, I'm 6 seconds ahead of the guys in second. As you can see, the Canadian passes the American there, so they were definitely fighting. But like I said, I was 6 seconds ahead of the guy behind us, and at this point I was really nervous. But I knew one thing, and one thing for sure, is if I can get through the first half of this lap, which I think is still the scariest part of the lap. For some reason, the big willow or the big turn at the end doesn't scare me, but I knew if I can get through this part of the lap safely without falling off track or anything, I figured I had the race I had the race in the bag, like 100%. Once coming through the last corner here, I took it a little bit slower just because I was getting real nervous, and coming down the hill into the heavy braking zone before you die into the middle of nowhere. After I hit this corner and knew I did it proper-ish and not die, coming down the straight on the back straight of Big Willow, I knew I had the race in the bag here. But I was literally audibly talking to myself here, saying, Lucas, you have this, Lucas. The race is yours. You're gonna win this race. Like the entire race, I'd say the last 3 laps, I was talking to myself, saying, Lucas, you have this. And as I'm coming around the final corner, I was like, I don't care how slow I take this corner. I don't think if I take a bad line, I'm going to stay tight on the inside as much as I can, slowly, just make sure I don't die. And as I hit the straightaway, I was screaming, yelling, saying, I did it. I did it. I'm going to have to bleep this out, but that's okay. I was screaming, jumping around, running around my basement at like 11:30 at night, screaming, I did it. I won. Because this is the first race I ever won. I've never won a race before, which is kind of insane. And can't believe how confidently I beat the other guys. Again, like I said, I do believe it's because they were fighting so hard, and that's mainly why. But I was just so excited, so happy. I finally won a race. I just couldn't believe it. I texted all my buddies, sent Snapchats. I don't have any of the footage, but yeah. But as you can see, like, I didn't lie. This is my first victory. Like, I won. You saw I got the achievement at the top right, and on the top left, you can see on top left. I mean, you can see it's my first victory, and I end up getting fast lap, clean race, and pole position, and that's like the perfect like first win ever. Like, I won that race so confidently, being the fastest guy, and I do believe it was partly because of what I said at the beginning. Was before the race started, I even said to myself, saying, hey, yeah, like, I'm the fastest guy in this lobby. And I think that confidence going into the race really helped me, because at first I was scared when I said it, but afterwards I was like, yeah, man, I am the fastest guy in this lobby. I can beat these guys. Like, they don't have it on me, right? But yeah, so I guess that means the Zero to Hero is over. Because does that make me a hero now? Because at the beginning of the series I could not take a corner at all, but now I'm winning races. So I don't know. You tell me, is this series over? I don't know. I'm probably not gonna end it just because I'm having so much fun playing the game now. Now that I'm actually getting decent at the game, I wouldn't say good. I'd say decent, but I'm getting decent at the game, and I'm having a lot of fun putting out laps and competing against other people. But without going on too long in this video, because I don't want to stretch out too long. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for subscribing, and I'll see you guys next time in my next episode.